Mr. Antonio Lopez-Isturiz, you are the new chairman of the European Parliament delegation for relations with the State of Israel. You are from Spain. Since 2004, you are a member of the European Parliament for the European People's Party, the largest political group in the Parliament, where you currently sit in the important Foreign Affairs Committee. You are also Secretary General of this group and a member of the Spanish conservative Partido Popular, People's Party.
That's correct.
How do you see your new chairmanship of the European Parliament delegations for relations with Israel? What is its role?
Of course, it's always a challenge because due to the special relations that are between the European Union, Israel, and in generally in the whole region, it's always a very delicate matter. But for me, more than a challenge, is a privilege to be now president of a very important delegation that relates to matters so dear to me, like this relation with Israel. I have been my whole political life for more than 20 years fighting for having the best relation between this European Union and Israel. I say it is a challenge because there are many misunderstandings and sometimes prejudices between us. There is a very simple sometimes opinion about the European Union, or maybe in the European Union by the media, but by people and politicians about also Israel. Israel has a very rich and complex political situation that I think that, as always points out, and I have always said, is the real democracy in the area. And we have to be supportive. And we have to be supportive of the Israeli people that are fighting for also freedom and the question of political also democracy in this region. This is a basic, for me, political argument, but it's also very personal and dear to me. I have very good relation with many Israeli people and many Jewish people here in Europe. And believe me, I'm not the only one. That is the other side of the coin. That is the problem that sometimes many people in Israel think that we all Europeans, we are not so acquainted or we do not know the realities of the area. And this is wrong. There is also people who defend from the European Union. My group, the EPP, has always been outstanding in this defense in the European Parliament about the right, of course, of assistance, while others deny this of the State of Israel. And we want to be there for you. And we are working. I'm a very, let's say, humble politician. We are not here to change the world. We know that this will take, it needs evolution, but we are there to help and also to create a better understanding between both parts.
Why have you been a candidate for such a post as a chairman of the delegation?
As a result of, as I said before, it's a result of 20 years of dedication. And I remember very well my first trip to Israel, how also my maybe prejudices, my opinions created maybe by the European media changed immediately and radically about such a beautiful country, so complex, but as I said, a dedicated democracy. And I think that the European Union has to be more serious in its relation about security, about trade, about many things that we have in common. I'm a very pragmatical person. I'm half American. So I think, like, for example, things like Erasmus for young Israelis to come, which is already existing, but let's enlarge it. Let's have more Israeli young people come to Europe and get to know better Europeans and get them to know that there's also people here, that we want them to feel safe, that they don't have to be thinking about the future on a negative way, that they have to be thinking on a positive way. And I think, and I believe that the European Union has to do its work for that. That's why I became president of this delegation. And during the next years, I will try my best, of course, as I said, very humbly, to work in this challenging, but at the same time, very reconforting work of bringing together closer Israel and the European Union.
But are you happy with the state of relations between the EU and Israel?
No, no. I'm not happy. I think that there is a lot that we have to advance. There is much work to be done. And also, remember, it's not only about the European institutions, it's also European member states, which still have the power in the European Union, also, but bilaterally, many of them, they have to change their attitude and their relation with Israel.
How do you see the evolution of these relations in view of the upcoming new EU leadership, including a Spanish High Representative for Foreign Policy, Mr. Borrell?
Well, I have to say that during his audition I was not, let's say, enthusiastic about, what are his views or plans. But again, I tell Israeli people that there will be people like me and others that we are going to work to redirect this. Mr. Borrell will become the High Representative of all Europeans, not of this old-fashioned, absolutely prejudiced vision from the European left. That is something different. The European left, unfortunately, in the past, during the 60s and the 50s, was very, very close to Israel. For whatever reasons, during these years, they have changed and they have become unbalanced in the conflict in the region. And they have to change their views. They have to understand that Israel, the Pacific understanding and living between Palestinians and Israelis European Union cannot be unbalanced on the approach to this problem.
Do you believe that the European Parliament can play a role in fighting anti-Semitism, but also anti-Israel, the BDS, anti-Israel movement, and anti-Zionism as a modern form of anti-Semitism?
Yes, of course. Because the European Union, the European Parliament has gone extra powers now in the European Union. And it has a voice, not only a voice, but also a decision-making. Now, it is a decision-making body of the European Union. So the responsibility is great. My concern is that I see the advancement of extremes in Europe, and also in the European Parliament, extreme right and extreme left, that for diverse reasons, they are not friendly with the question of Israel. And these are the people that I am combating politically here in Europe, also for my, of course, ideological and personal reasons, but also because of the wrong view and lack of support of Israel in general politics, in international politics.
Members of a Palestinian terrorist group, the PFLP, have been invited to speak in the European Parliament by a far-left MEP from Spain. Do you plan to act against such events, such situations?
We will always denounce this type of situations. It's not much that we can do. I had to bear also terrorists from Spain, from ETA, from the Basque Country, coming to this parliament and having a voice in the past. I know how this works. But we have to work in order to convince our colleagues, specifically in the left, ideological left in Europe, that this cannot happen again, that we cannot have people adhering or belonging to political movements close to terrorist organizations or even in terrorist organizations to participate and to act against our dear democratic institutions. But this is a work that we have to do inside, and of course always there is a need also to denounce this. Many of my colleagues that have already done this in the European Parliament, and I hope that the President of the European Parliament takes good note about this.
Last question, how do you see the current deadlocked political situation in Israel?
Well, I wish. It's not my, of course, one of my duties as President of the delegation with Israel to interfere or to say anything about internal politics. I wish, of course, my wish as a politician, as someone that wants to help, is that the government will be formed as quickly as possible, and especially the Knesset, because this is a parliamentary delegation, and we need good colleagues and friends who are in the Knesset to work immediately with us. And we already are starting to make some approaches in order to know when we can meet. And I think that the best thing we have to have is always contacts and to have very good, relation between the European Parliament and the Knesset. This is something that I'm going to work dearly on that.
Mr. Lopez-Isturiz, thank you very much.
Thank you.